Matt Matros, who's a professional poker player, has made more than $2 million playing poker. He's won the World Series of Poker. Told me about how he goes about planning for a poker tournament, a poker game. And so he thinks about scenarios he might face in the moment that would cause him to make sort of rash decisions, like he's next to a player who's got a lot of bravado, who he's played against in the past, and he's going to be tempted to just kind of just lay it all out there and do something that doesn't make sense. He's also going to think about card combinations, so he's very mathematical the way he plays, and he'll think about scenarios that he could face at the poker table and what he would do under each of them based on what the odds will be. So he actually does some forecasting like that. And basically, that is a version of a technique that's been studied by Peter Gollwitzer, who's an NYU professor, who's documented this in sort of many, many dozens of settings, called if-then tactics. And this works very well for New Year's resolutions, by the way. So if you have a New Year's resolution and you're just telling yourself, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week or 3 days a week, we all know how that usually turns out. Something happens, right? You end up, for me, it's like, okay, it's really cold, since I live in Boston, it's really cold this morning. I want to go to the gym, but I just don't. I just want another hour of sleep and let it warm up a little bit, and then I'll just go to work. And so if you're doing an if-then tactic, what you would do is you would say, I'm going to make the resolution, gym 3 days a week. If it's really cold in the morning, then I will, and then I state some sort of positive thing I will do that will get me to actually do this thing. So if it's a really cold morning, I will turn up like the hip hop really loud at 6 a.m. and that'll get me out of bed, and then I'll go to the gym. So it's sort of anticipating all the hurdles that might get in the way of your long-term goal, and thinking of those short-term hurdles and then stating affirmatively what you'll do to avoid them. And this, by the way, has also been shown to work in classrooms where teachers have implicit bias when disciplining school children. So there's this pattern in which black and brown students are sent to the principal's office more often in classrooms across the country, and that has disproportionate impact on their outcomes in life, because if you go to this, it's just sort of this out of school, you go to this principal's office, you're more likely to be suspended. If you're more likely to be suspended, you're more likely to end up in the prison system. So there's this whole chain of events, and it starts with the teacher and the student in the classroom. And teachers that I interviewed who'd used these techniques had found a way to actually change some of the outcomes in their schools and their classrooms. And what they would do is say, okay, I know that there's certain students that just irritate me, or I know if I haven't eaten enough, I'm going to end up disciplining my students too harshly. So if a student acts up in class, then I'm going to first drop my pencil and count to 3 before I decide what to do with the student. And it's basically a way of planning ahead for a situation that's prone to an impulsive reaction. And it has been shown to have at least some preliminary positive results in preventing people from acting on their implicit bias.
Right, so with the poker player, it was to not make an emotional play. If they're prepared for every card combination, and in the teacher's case, not make an emotional play when angry with the student.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, it's sort of an emotional play, and one that's just based on that immediate impulse, instead of maybe what a lot of these teachers, right, they don't want to actually be doing this. They just find themselves in the moment making those decisions. But if they really think about what's good for the long-term goals of their students or their classroom, it's not necessarily sending the kids to the principal's office.